So, I got a question, guys. If I told you that there were a large contingent of gay and trans Republicans who have been disenfranchised by the Republican Party during its further and further shift to the right and extremism, would you be surprised? The fan art. This one is from Mathematical Cabbage. They said Raz fan art. They mentioned liking 1860s fashion, so roughly 1860s, no particular year, but more early to mid. Grumble the Mashing, it's a gown with a matching hat and parasol. Always good to see Raz fan art in there on top of everything else. The next one we have is from Ghost Chance. That it's been way too long since I posted here. Yes, it has, Ghost. Yes, it has. But also, thank you so much for the whoa fan art. I like the really big fluffy tail like that. That's really, really nice. The last one we have is a really, really good piece from Shady Shion. It said, I made this to thank you while entertaining me while stuck at home working. We have a pixel art Suris here with almost gem-like eyes, and it looks, I really like this. This looks like a, this looks like an NPC that you would have just sitting, if you like made this smaller, almost like this. Like if you made that a little bit smaller, we've got a an NPC walking around a town in the SNES. And I dig that vibe. I really do. As always, everybody, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in future videos, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, if you haven't subscribed already or hit the like button, maybe consider doing so. Maybe even check out Patreon, where behind-the-scenes stuff, vlogs, stuff about my pets, all that stuff is over on Patreon, and it helps support the channel a fuck ton when YouTube ad revenue is being particularly weird and bonkers. But with all that said, let's go ahead and get right into the topic itself. So we have, starting out, a very, very striking image of a put-together older gentleman and, of course, a pride flag. Let's look at the actual article itself to see why we have such striking imagery. We failed. Gay Republicans who fought for acceptance in the Texas GOP see little progress. Gay Republicans who have fought for acceptance of the Texas GOP over the past 3 decades told the Texas Tribune that progress has been excruciatingly slow. Many of them have left the party, even as the number of log cabin Republicans in Texas continues to grow. In June 1998, a group of gay and lesbian conservatives pushing for greater representation at the Texas Republican Party convention in Fort Worth found themselves in a frightening clash with members of their own party. Wow. Can you imagine that gay people would find themselves disenfranchised by the party that historically oppresses gay people? Wow, shocker. I mean, I feel bad, but at the same time, something about face-eating leopards. What would you expect from face-eating leopards but for them to eat your face? Members of the Log Cabin Republicans were protesting at the gathering of party faithful after a state GOP official made offensive comments comparing the group to the Ku Klux Klan, a group that is mostly made up of Republicans these days, and pedophiles. The group was also protesting the rejection of their request to host a booth at the convention. The second time in a row they'd been denied when they'd hoped to share information about their organization. Counter-protesters surrounded the log cabin members, wielding signs with homophobic slurs and phrases like, "The gay life equals AIDS, then hell." They pushed and spat and shoved their fingers in the faces of the gay Republicans. Richard Taffel, the former executive director of the National Log Cabin Republicans, which bills itself as the nation's largest Republican organization dedicated to representing LGBT conservatives and allies, attended the Texas convention that year and recalls thinking that he was in serious danger as they advocated for respect for members of their own party. He said, "We're here to draw a line. no more hatred, no more hatred in the name of God, and we won't be silenced. So, here's the thing. I understand the want to drag the Republican Party back to something that looks like decency, that looks like sanity, and drag it away from homophobia. I get it. I understand. And I applaud the efforts. I really do. But to think that a party that has historically voted in the Senate and in the House against LGBTQ people at every single turn, what is expected there? At this point, if you really want LGBTQ representation to be better protected, I hate to say it, but just joining the Democratic Party is probably your better bet. And I understand if you don't want to join the Democrats because you don't agree with a lot of their political beliefs, but guess what? You don't agree with a lot of the Republican political beliefs either. And they don't agree with you merely existing. If you want a strategy to make the Republicans change their mind, punish them for their current mind state. They are going to continue falling more into extremism. This is a snowball you cannot stop. So instead, grab the lesser of two evils, even though that evil literally funds some people in the Republican Party. Grab the reins of the lesser of two evils, hop over there, swell their ranks, and make it harder and harder for the Republicans that currently exist and are in that party to do what they're trying to do, to maintain the reins of power that they do. Zin Kiddens, thank you very much for redeeming your points for an you fucking degen. But realistically, the reason I say that, the reason that I mentioned that, and Wicked Arctine, I'm sorry I didn't catch that when you followed. My apologies. The reason I say that is not because I have any love for the Democratic Party. I don't. Especially after we covered the way they send funding this, there, and the other way in places where they should not be. The part of me that wants things to happen, the part of me that wants any of these wheels to actually spin, recognizes that the only way to make those wheels spin is by swelling the ranks of the Democratic Party right now. I wish there were a better option, but our current voting system doesn't allow for another option. Even the touted, well, if we just get a third party to X, no, we won't. Mathematically, we won't. We are past the point of that being a possibility and have been past that point for a very long time. It takes an exceptional circumstance for a third party to do anything other than split the votes of one of the two major parties, and both major parties know that. So, if you don't want to call yourself a Democrat, I don't like calling myself one. I'm not going to call myself one. But when it comes voting day, those are usually where my votes are going to go. And I don't like that. So the Dems already put the knife in that throat anyway. Yeah, like they're holding your vote hostage. There's nothing you can do about it. But if you are a Republican who is disenfranchised by the Republican Party because they hate you for existing as who you do, you're already playing politics. Hop to the other side and play politics that way. And then maybe we can throw Joe Manchin over to the Republicans. A counter-protester threw a sign in his face. It was a tornado of emotion, volatile and dangerous, ready to touch down and sweep us all away at any moment. I was afraid for my own safety and that of others, wrote Dale Carpenter, a former president of Log Cabin Republican Texas, in a newsletter that year. Ultimately, no one was injured that day, but it is a vivid display of homophobia within the party. More than 2 decades later, this year's Texas Republican Convention made headlines again for its attitude toward LGBTQ people. The party adopted a platform in June at its convention in Houston declaring that homosexuality is an abnormal lifestyle choice. That party position comes after similar language had been stripped from the platform just 4 years earlier, representing a backward step for log cabin members who have for years been fighting for acceptance within their ranks. Yeah, there's the weaponization of normal again. I understand in the previous bit, I noted that in our actual conversation we were having, it was pedantic to try to throw the word in different ways than what I was meaning. But yes, in this instance, yes, this is weaponization of what people call normal. Said gay Republicans who have fought for acceptance within the Texas GOP over the past 3 decades told the Texas Tribune progress has been excruciatingly slow. Many of them have left the party, even as the number of log cabin Republicans in Texas continues to grow. I do not believe that we made any progress. In fact, I think the party got worse, said Carpenter, who's no longer involved in party politics. Since the group's inception in 1989, the Log Cabin Republicans of Texas have been denied a booth at the state convention. And this year's convention was no different. Booths are granted to all sorts of conservative interest groups, advocating for issues relating to gun rights, anti-abortion issues, and freedom from vaccines. A booth, in many ways, is a symbolic seat at the table. Getting a booth has also become a signal for party approval. You have arrived and are accepted in the grand old party. Beyond the official state party, which often represents the most hardline members and belief systems, mainstream conservatives in Texas have turned their attention to recent months towards anti-LGBTQ initiatives, oftentimes in the form of legislation relating to schools, curriculum, and library books that address sexuality and gender identity. Governor Greg Abbott issued an order this year equating allowing minors to receive any transgender care as child abuse. Now, that should note that that's talking about even puberty blockers. So it's okay to give puberty blockers to a kid if they have cancer, but if they're trans and might commit suicide, don't give them the thing that isn't going to cause any negative effects to their system that we have to worry about. Yeah, no, it's fine. The legislature also passed a bill last year banning transgender children from playing on public school sports teams that align with their gender identity, and conservatives nationwide are taking aim at same-sex marriage. Senator Ted Cruz said on his podcast last week that he believes the U.S. Supreme Court legal reasoning was clearly wrong when it legalized same-sex marriage in 2015, but acknowledged that undoing it would be more than a little chaotic, and that he doesn't think that the court has the appetite to do it. A majority of the House Republicans last week voted against protecting the rights of same-sex marriage. Only one Texas Republican voted for the measure. State legislatures across the country have proposed more than 300 anti-LGBTQ bills this year, many of which are targeted at transgender youth. It saddens me that the state where our biggest issues are our infrastructure, development, and education. We have child poverty everywhere, school shootings that are happening, that we're so focused on trying to limit the access to opportunities for trans youth, said Chris Busby, a former log cabin member who left the party in 2016. Gee, I wonder if there was any major event that caused him to leave the party in 2016. I don't know, it was a pretty uneventful year for America, all things considered. The Texas GOP declined to comment for this story and referred all questions to the party platform. The Tribune reached out to prominent Texas Republican leaders for comment on the state party's anti-LGBTQ platform, Plank. Texas House Speaker Dad Fleener declined to comment. Abbott and Dan Patrick did not respond to repeated requests for comment. And then, of course, their Senator John Cornyn did not answer when asked about the party platform, instead deflecting to discuss this congressional action this week on marriage equality. Cruz said the platform is not rhetoric or language that I use, and that the decisions of consenting adults concerning matters of sexuality are choices for individuals to make. So it's interesting that Cruz would say that after saying that the Supreme Court made a mistake in letting it be legal for them to marry. Oh, but if these are decisions between consenting adults, that's fine. That's their job. They can do that. It's okay. This is speaking out of both sides of the mouth. This is political double talk. It's okay to be gay, but we're going to make your life hell if you are. It's okay to be gay, but get out of the goddamn party. It's okay to be gay, but we're going to make every single ounce of your existence trouble for being so. All of them attended the convention with the exception of a bot who held a reception associated with the event. Current log cabin members in Texas have admonished the party for the language in its platform, but they emphasize the party apparatus is not representative of all or even most Republicans, while pointing to incremental gains they've made within the state party. There are over 270 planks in the GOP platform, said Michael Cargill, the president of the Austin Log Cabin chapter, who recently resigned as acting chair of the state organization for reasons he said are unrelated to the recent platform. There are only 4 planks that we disagree on. And those 4 planks were enough for you guys to never get a seat at the table for 3 decades. Going on 4. 3 decades. There's only 4 things you disagree on. But that is enough to be ostracized from the party for 3 fucking decades. At some point, you have to recognize you're not welcome there. Literally, to you, well, I'm gay and so I'm not allowed here, but that's only one thing. To you, that's one thing. To the GOP, that's everything. Saying that, well, this isn't language that I personally use, and I myself do not like using the language of the party platform, that's one thing. But that doesn't help. Congratulations, you get to be a special little snowflake, Ted Cruz. You're so special, you don't use the language of the party platform, whilst you use the language of the party platform in other everyday speech. Congratulations! You are immune to it, so why are you under that rhetoric and banner? Why would you fight in that particular arena if they did not espouse those values you espouse? But let's go ahead and continue. Notably, the log cabin Republican of Texas, which included about 350 dues-paying members in 2021, endorsed the legislator's bills targeting trans youth playing school sports. The position represents what earlier members described as a shift within the group and a schism between current and former log cabin members. Yeah, I imagine any Republicans who were trans weren't a big fan of that. Carpenter recalled that in the 90s, the primary mission was to achieve acceptance of gay members within the party, but after decades of nearly stagnant progress on that front, he thinks the group has shifted towards prioritizing common ground. We asked ourselves from time to time, are you gay first and Republican second, or are you Republican first and gay second? I think in recent years, the mission may have shifted to primarily promoting the Republican Party among LGBTQ people to help win elections. Current leadership seems to be Republican first. If you are your political party above anything else, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm just curious. Like, what you, as an individual, what is wrong with you? Why would you put party politics above your own identity? You yourself. Who you are. Why would you put the generic milquetoast ideas put forward by a bunch of bureaucrats as somehow more important than you? The party can burn down and you'll still be alive. You'll still be here. I don't understand it. This idea of sacrificing your identity for the political party. No. This is why I refuse to call myself a fucking Democrat. Shut up. This is why I refuse to call myself a fucking Democrat. Because I understand that there are aspects of leftism that the Democratic Party does not endorse. And I am not going to be that party before I am who I believe I am politically. It said, they the token LGBTQ is really sad. Yeah, they're basically the tokens. They're the tokens being used by the Republican Party. That's what they are at that point. Then goes on to say, I sort of lost hope. In 1990, the GOP platform called homosexuality biologically and morally unsound and compared same-sex relationships to necrophilia and pedophilia, bestiality, or incest. They still do that, by the way. Paul von Wupperfeld, a gay man who lived in Austin at the time, considered himself politically right of center and in favor of limited government. Gay Republicans were hard to come by back then. Many of them had become disillusioned with the Republican Party due to President Ronald Reagan's handling of the AIDS pandemic in the 1980s. Inspired by other log cabin chapters that had formed more than a decade earlier, Wupperfeld and others thought that they could change the Texas GOP. He would serve as the first president of the Log Cabin Republicans of Texas. Today, he considers the effort an utter failure. We failed to moderate the Republican Party, he said, now a 56-year-old Democrat who has not voted Republican since 2000. He says, I'm glad we tried, and I think we did the right thing in trying. We're actually going the other way. Faster and faster and faster. Early on, the group had glimmers of optimism. In 1990, the Travis County GOP convention was opened by a gay man's chorus. Some of the GOP groups in major cities showed up to support for the log cabin Republicans, but every step forward, there was another fall backwards. Republicans started emphasizing social issues as religious conservatives took over the party. The Travis County GOP added language to its 1994 platform opposing homosexual education in public schools. According to the news articles published after the change, the Galveston County GOP called for all HIV patients to be quarantined, a decision log cabin members said was intended to target gay people who were disproportionately affected by the virus. The Houston Post wrote on a 1994 article that the GOP, particularly in Texas, has become increasingly socially conservative, with the Christian right in firm control of the party apparatus. The religious right movement was emboldened 2 years earlier in Houston. Conservative commentator Pat Buchanan gave a speech at the 1992 Republican National Convention that would become known as the Culture War speech, in which he warned about a nation embroiled in a war for the soul of America. He said, "We stand with President George H.W. Bush against the amoral idea that gay and lesbian couples should have the same standing in law as married men and women." In 1995, von Wupperfeld had enough. He resigned as president of the statewide group. He said, "I didn't believe it could succeed anymore. I sort of lost hope and got tired of the drama and the fighting internally and the fighting within the party." After Wupperfeld left, Carpenter would take over the leadership role. He held the position for 2 years until 1997, until he too lost hope as his party was swallowed by social conservatives. "We were just a few people in a few cities, and we're up against thousands and thousands of very organized activists who really only cared about two things: abortion and homosexuality." Anubian says, "This sounds like a tragedy story." It is. This is a story about desperately trying to pull the other side of the political spectrum back to sanity and failing over time, over and over and over again. Penetration, thank you very much for the follow. The battle for a booth of the Texan Republican Party convention every 2 years has turned into a proxy war for acceptance within the state party. To get a booth, a group submits an application to the party, and then a committee of party officials votes on whether or not to approve the request. This year, the log cabin came up short by 1 vote. Party chair Matt Rinaldi's vote of present, which meant he did not vote in favor or against. Booths in the convention's exhibit hall Give interest groups and some elected officials a chance to meet with other politicians, delegates, and members to advocate on issues. At this year's convention, there were more than 75 booths at the exhibit hall, including ones for Texans for vaccine freedom and anti-abortion groups like Texas Right to Life. We don't need to look more at the stuff about the booth. We already know they haven't gotten a booth. A spoiler alert, they didn't get their booth. In more recent years, the GOP has softened some of its homophobic language. By 2012, the GOP had abandoned its platform condemning sodomy. The Supreme Court had legalized sodomy 9 years earlier, superseding Texas's law banning it, which has still not yet been repealed. Talk to Clarence Thomas about that. He might have some words about that. In 2016, it removed its explicit endorsement of reparative therapy, a debunked and harmful treatment that claims to turn gay people straight. But it still made a point of citing its availability for self-motivated youth and adults. So that's the same thing. If you go, I don't support conversion therapy, but if somebody wants conversion therapy, they can totally go get it. Oh my God, why is Discord showing my DMs? Turn off all notifications in Discord. Turn the fuck off. Why would anybody want their fucking DMs showing like that? Go away. But it goes on to say that Roberts, the first openly gay person in the GOP platform committee, led streamer mode not enabled. Streamer mode's enabled. Streamer mode's enabled. Discord's just fucking dumb. It's just really dumb. I'll have to change those notification settings here in a bit. Enable desktop notifications. No. Go away. Maybe Discord just got excited about all the letter you're getting. Oh my God. But no, if you go like, I don't support conversion therapy, but I support you getting conversion therapy if you really want, you probably should really go get that. If you're so self-motivated to get it, you probably could. You know, getting conversion therapy, you really should consider it. But I don't support it. Wink, wink. That's all that fucking is. That's all that fucking is. And the story goes on just detailing the tragedies about how the party has been ripped further and further and further and further, even though there have been small gains. Most of the gains about rhetoric on the party platform. I'm glad you finished your commission, Stoff. That conversion therapy should be banned. Yeah, it should. That's not a thing that we should be doing. If conversion therapy exists within the borders of our nation, there are people who are going to advocate for its use and try to get people pushed through it, even if they don't want to be put through it. You don't have to be a person who says, I want this. All you have to do is be a person whose family is compelling them to do it. That's all you need. Yeah, it's not therapy, it's fucking torture. To just leave the damn party? That's my thought. Like, at what point do you just go, well, the log cabin idea was not a success. Hasn't been a success for 30 years. Move over to the Democrat Party, swell their ranks. Trust me, there's not as many differences between those two parties as there should be anyways. But leave the hive mind? Never. What are some tactics to get them to vote Dem? Mostly pointing out that a lot of GOP legislation is anti-LGBTQ. And most GOP senators are going to continue to do anti-LGBTQ shit. And because they're going to continue doing that, voting for GOP senators and GOP House of Representatives is going to, by and large, affect them negatively. And if they want to do this, I'm Republican first, gay second, you can choose your party. You don't get to choose your sexuality. So maybe the thing you should be first is the thing you are, that you don't get a choice in. not the thing that could change 3 years from now because of an opinion. But, again, if you have a face, and you share a face with a bunch of, or you share a space with a bunch of face-eating leopards, what do you expect is going to happen? Let me know in the comment section below, because this, it's a tragic story. It's a story of a group of people trying desperately to stop, well, basically evil, and failing. And clinging on to little bits like, we got them to change the language in the platform once for one sentence. That's huge, guys. No, you're still not welcomed at that table. You're still not wanted in that group. You have not done more than the social zeitgeist has done. And I hate to say it. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you haven't already. This is kind of a sad episode, but that's how things get to be over here sometimes. Subscribe if you haven't already, and maybe check out the Patreon. Those things help out the channel a fuck ton. And as always, everybody, insert end of video tagline here.